Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and for all who are watching. Today, we just pretty much are going to do an introduction of who we are. And the reason that we decided to do more sense is because we've noticed a lot of negative things that's out in the media, people that's going back and forth. And, we're pretty much just doing this to bring sense of all and everything. We don't want to be called hosts because we more considered your family.
That's right.
And, we just going to do an introduction of who we are. We're going to talk a little bit about what the Moorish Science Temple of America is and the doctrine that we actually practice, because there's so many different people out there. They've never been a part of the Moorish Science Temple of America. They pick up books, watch YouTube videos, and they think they actually know when they're not even close to what it is that we are, that we practice or that we are about. So this is why we decided to do the show. We're going to be professional.
That's right.
We don't debate, we communicate. For all those who come by our page and see or want to say something negative, we appreciate you, but you can keep it moving.
That's right.
Because we're not going to be with the back and forth and
arguments,
everything,
all the nonsense you see on
YouTube debates, and that stuff is not moving us forward as a nation of people.
And that's not what the Moorish Science Temple was all about.
Correct, and it's only bringing more confusion about what it is that we are. So, without further ado,
good evening. I'm Sheikh Brendan Joyner L. Been in the Moorish Science Temple of America for 5 years. A devoted father. Have a family. My family's in the temple. I'm an educator. I teach here in Baltimore, Maryland. Ninth grade U.S. history, of course, which is one of my favorite subjects, is history. So I'm a historian. I'm also I'm also the representative of Central Committee, Second District here in Baltimore City. So I've been part of the political process as well here in the city of Baltimore. And this is what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he demonstrates, or he gives us a lesson that it's our civic duty to actually be a part of this said government, as opposed to being in variance with it. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali teaches that Moorish Americans are supposed to respect the law, obey the law, and we're supposed to abide by the law of the land, Islam. So ultimately speaking, I also had my master's in education administration, which was a grueling task, but ultimately, the purpose of the show, as Sheikh Velaz Bey said, is not to debate, but actually communicate and actually bring a different perspective, or a more enlightening perspective, more science. Because we know and understand the viewers out there, just like I am, you're tired of seeing the same mundane, debating,
elementary stuff.
Elementary shit, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So, we hope that this program is enlightening to you. We encourage you to subscribe to this program, and we just look forward to just building and working with you all.
And
press back to the shoot.
And what's your undergraduate degree?
Oh, my undergraduate degree is actually in history.
Okay.
For major concentration. Well, my major was undergraduate degree. My major was history with a concentration in political science. So
praise Allah. And I am Sheikh Melvin Velaz Bey on Facebook. You probably have seen me at the School to McCray. I don't use my name specifically. Facebook is really not. It's a tool. It's not even real. Right. So people just take it so seriously, but it's not a real situation. But I am a Sheikh in the Moorish Science Temple of America. I've been in the Moorish Science Temple of America for 20 years. I have an undergraduate degree, and it's in human services. And my concentration is social work and also community development. And also I have a master's in applied social science, and my concentration is public administration. And the reason why we're giving out what our degrees and background, and I've worked in government. We talking about from city, state to federal government. And the reason why we're giving our titles and our degrees, not that it means a whole lot, but we're qualifying ourselves because there are a lot of people who they're using
titles,
right, which they lay hands on themselves.
Exactly.
We didn't make ourselves. The elders or the council actually made us.
Exactly.
And some of the history of we come from the Moorish Science Temple of America.
Right.
Our temple number is 13, but some people will tell you we are 13-1,
right.
but we give honor to A Cook Bey and G Cook Bey.
That's right.
Because they are the founders, or they are the ones who established the temple here in Baltimore at 705 South Sharp Street. And we also give high honor. Some people, say whatever they want to say, but we also give high honor to Dr. R. Jeremy Bey, Richardson Dingle-Will,
right.
and Timothy Dingle-Will, because if it were not for those particular individuals in that order, we wouldn't have what we had today. And specifically, our teacher, leader, and guide at this point in time is Grand Sheik Curlil.
That's right.
And we have a Grand Sheik Thornhill who's transitioned to the next world.
That's right.
Grand Sheik is Greenhill.
That's right.
Grand Sheik Prather-Ill, and so
right.
many other elders, and we just pretty much probably named over 100 years that all of those individuals have in the Moorish Science Temple of America. And not to speak of, the connection that we have with, not that it's a separate organization,
That's
they
right.
just use a different name, which is the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, which we have some elders who've been in the temple since the 30s.
Exactly.
They've seen all of the transitions that, the Moorish Science Temple of America has been through, but you have a lot of people who are, calling themselves by these particular titles. But if it came down time to do a funeral, a marriage, or whatever, I wouldn't allow them to conduct my ceremony because of, Moorish Science. It was the Moorish Science Temple of America was established by Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And, it is reported that it was initially called the Canaanite Temple. We've seen documents, but Prophet Noble Drew Ali's name is not on there. We're not saying that
it's not
so.
Right.
However, we know that from there, he left Newark, New Jersey, and then he winded up somewhere around the time of the dates that I have is 1917 in Chicago. But by that time, he traveled all around the world. And then when he traveled all around the world, when he got back to America, he went to President Woodrow Wilson, and he talked to Woodrow Wilson and retrieved the proverbial cherry tree.
That's right.
And you'll see that flag behind myself.
Right.
And this is the flag that General George Washington chopped down. Now, if for all those who would like to go and look up that story, you'll find out that that story is actually a myth.
That's right.
And you'll find out that George Washington, and not that we're speaking radical either,
not at all.
George Washington was a Mason.
That's right.
And what was the point of Europeans' curriculum teaching us that in school?
Right. Exactly.
So basically, they were kind of making fun of us because George Washington defeated our people, and chopping down a cherry tree is chopping down a red flag with a 5-pointed green star in the center. So we're dealing with what is called symbolism.
That's right.
And Prophet Noble Drew Ali was a symbolic man. He wasn't a Mason.
Not at all.
He was not a Shriner.
Not at all.
And various other things that people
try to put on.
Exactly. Because for those, like we said, I'm not speaking radical. For those of you who know Shriners and Masons, ask them, can they bring their wives and their children to their meetings? Which we bring our children and our family and anybody who wants to visit to our temple. So, that's not so. Also, we don't disfigure our feathers. Shriners, Masons can't wear feathers
at all.
Not until they reach a certain point.
That's right.
Not that I've ever been there, but just things that I read.
Right, exactly.
And also, Shriners, they put jewels and they top their tassels down. If you can if you notice,
It's free.
it's free. We're free men.
That's right.
Not freed men, we are free men.
Exactly.
And our women are free women and our children are free children. So, so basically, Moorish science is ancient tradition of spiritual knowledge. Since the transition of our prophet Noble Drew Ali, the spiritual tradition has often been misused, debased, and misrepresented, and it has been used for strange and unsavory practices.
Right.
Like we see, just the other day, I saw a guy hanging out the window with a Moorish flag, talking about his paperwork,
cursing at the police.
Yeah,
and just causing confusion.
Yeah, that's not Moorish science, and he was not a Moorish American.
He does not represent the Moorish science.
Yeah, in a sense of actually, attending meetings, and that's not what our teachers teach us.
Right.
It's not about evading taxes and things of this nature. Yeah. Because when I first came into the temple, which was in 1998, the thing was, people would commit crimes, and because they heard about the power of the Moors, they would come to the temple. And
kind of like a safe haven.
Okay. But the Moorish Science Temple of America is not a place to harbor law violations.
That's right. Exactly.
We are to obey the law.
Exactly.
And what we mean by that is not that we're submitting to individuals, or we do that because we want to build our community. And further shows, we will actually point out that in all actuality there were 35 Moors and 20 Anglo-Saxons who came up with what is called the Union.
That's right.
The Union is actually older than the Constitution. And we will get further into these particular things and have discussions about it. So this is why we are Moorish Americans.
Exactly.
Because let the truth be told, Africa is a continent.
That's right.
And it has 54 different countries. And those who are calling themselves African Americans, you can't go to any of those continents and ask to come back home.
That's right.
What they're going to actually do is they're going to require you to have certain rules and regulations that you must follow in order to become a citizen.
That's right.
And then you'll still be an American, but you'll have citizenship in that country.
Duality, so to speak.
Right. So to speak. So basically, they were trying to come in and they were ducking child support.
Okay.
So what they started doing was going to get passports.
Okay.
And at that time, you could, with your passport, you would automatically be issued an international driver's license.
Okay.
And basically what wound up happening was when the states were not communicating as well, or let's say I lived in the state of Maryland, your license will be suspended. And then you would have a passport and an international driver's license. And then people were saying, when the police pull you over and they tell you your license is suspended, and people will say, well, I'm a diplomat. Here's my international driver's license.
Same disappointment.
And now what you'll notice is that the United States government won't even issue
they stop
your international driver's license with your passport. It's separate.
Exactly.
And they are separate things that you have to go through.
Right.
But, these were some of the things that I've seen, coming in and, into the Moorish Science Temple, and people trying to, just glean off of what it is that we have and take it and run and pretty much make money off of it.
It's interesting you said that, because I just was reading an article the other day about the Real ID Act.
Oh, okay.
So when we talk about the Real ID Act, that's a continuation of what occurred over 20 years ago.
Right.
Because you had individuals who were law breakers. You had individuals who were looking for ways and means to get around the law, so to speak. And now what you're seeing transpire is the government is saying, look, enough of that. We're not going for this. Correct. You have to identify yourself in the correct way. Right. You can't do it through paperwork. You can't do it through paying $500 for nationality. The only way you can do this, is to come to the Moorish Science Temple of America legally and lawfully. Right. And this is what the sheet is demonstrated.
Because nationality is the order of the day.
That's right.
And when we're talking about nationality, if you go back to your elementary school, or even middle school, or even some high school, they tell you that America is the melting pot.
Yeah.
You know, and here in Baltimore, if you go down to what they call the East Harbor, you'll see a lot of Italian flags flying around. And what they call it is Little Italy.
Right.
And, you know, for the most part, you know, some of these people may have never been to Italy.
Right.
And, you know, some of them may know what, you know, their heritage is, and they're proud of it, and they fly their flag, and they proclaim that they are Italian Americans.
Exactly.
So with being Moorish Americans, we have a vast history. You know, we go, our race is Asiatic. Now, why is our race Asiatic? One of the reasons being is because at one time the whole world was called Asia. And this is when, you know, some people subscribe to the European concept of Pangea, talking about that the landmass was one landmass.
Right.
But I always had a question of how is that so when you have the same amount of water that's on Earth now is the same amount of water that was on Earth in ancient times.
You're telling me in ancient times, the same amount of water then is the same amount of water now.
Absolutely. So basically what wound up happening is it was not one whole landmass. What it was a landmass, but it was separated by 4 rivers, which we read in our Holy Bible, which some of those rivers have their names till this day. So that means that Central, South, and North America, and even Africa was much closer than what it is today.
Exactly.
And you know, when we read about the flood in the Bible, you know, in different parts of the world, it acted out in different ways. Some places it was a flood. Some places it acted out as an earthquake. You know, landslides and things of this nature. So these are the things that we have to come to grips to understand. And our lessons, like, you know, whatever happened in 1928, 1930, or whatever, I wasn't born then.
Neither was I.
You know, and we had the opportunity, maybe, what was it, a week ago?
Yeah, we did. We had the opportunity to actually attend the Interfaith Dinner.
Interfaith Dinner. Where there were Jews,
other
Muslims, or Muslims,
right?
And
some Christians there.
Some Christians, right?
Christians there too.
And it was a beautiful thing. And for those who don't think that Jews, Muslims, or Muslims and Christians can live peacefully, you can refer to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him.
That's right.
During the time that he was on earth, he had created what was called the Charter of Privileges.
That's right.
And that Charter of Privileges allowed Jews, Christians, and Muslims to, you know, be at
coexist, right?
Yeah, to coexist.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, we believe different things, and you know, of course, doctrine is always going to be different, because there are people in the Moorish Science Temple of America who we don't have. We see things from a different point of view.
And this is what the Prophet Muhammad demonstrates in the Holy Quran.
Right. And which is nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong at
all. You know,
but
people, if I tell somebody, well, I don't see it that way, you know, then they ready to go to arms or war. And that's just not how, because we have principles.
That's right.
And you can't see the flag, but our flag is a red flag with a 5-pointed green star in the center. And the 5 points represent love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, which are principles. And these principles, if you read Stephen Covey's book, it's called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He says in that book that principles are habits, and they should be internalized. And once a principle is internalized, then what happens is it permeates your very being. You know, and what I mean by permeate, people will be able to see it.
They recognize it on your countenance.
Right.
They'll be able to recognize it. You know, they'll see that glow within you.
Right.
Because you're living a clean life to the best of your ability.
To the best of your ability.
You know, and you're not doing harm to others. And that's just what it's about, you know, that permeation.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, basically, we want people to understand that the Moorish Science Temple of America is a school.
That's right.
And of that school, you had a dean of the school. And a lot of people don't know who that dean was. They will tell you a number of different things, but we won't mention the name at this point in time because we do have esoteric lessons.
That's right.
And a lot of what people are giving you are, like we said, the exoteric, which is simply elementary. So let's define what esoteric is.
Okay.
So esoteric is intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest.
Right.
So as sheiks, we don't just go because according to the divine constitution and bylaws, we have required meetings that we should attend, which is Friday, Holy Day, and then we have our Sunday school. But we are also required to attend other meetings.
That's right.
And in these other meetings, we are educated by a person or individuals who have been taught and who have qualified and who are acknowledged sheiks.
And they have an extensive background.
In the Moorish Science Temple of
America.
Science Temple of America.
And see it being demonstrated in their life living.
Correct. Right. Because that's what it's all about. It's about life living. It's not about
who has the most information.
What I'm
going to call myself today. What I'm going to call myself tomorrow. It's not about it,
or presenting paperwork,
copy,
telling the cops that you don't have no jurisdiction. That's not what Moorish Science is about.
Fussing with,
Moorish Science is about more sense and more insight into life.
That's right.
And it's about building a community and developing principles among our community. Look at the people who are referring to themselves as being Negroes, Blacks, and colored.
Right.
Here in Baltimore, last year we had over 300 murders.
Yeah, 315 murders.
And now we like 130
murders. Right.
130.
We're not even in the 6th month yet.
Right.
That's an issue. That's a big issue.
It's a big issue.
You have babies getting shot.
Correct.
You have women. Elderly woman was just shot in South Baltimore. She was somebody's grandmother, 78 years old.
Right.
And you're talking, Prophet Noble Ali, he demonstrates to you and I about conditions, about if we think your condition can be better, join the Moorish Science of America. So this is, as she said, it's a school of thought, because thought is the cause of all.
Correct.
You have to think. We have to think. We have to process before we actually act. We have to go out, get out of the mindset of actually being reactionary and actually use our cognitive thinking ability.
Exactly. And thinking, it's a process, it's an order, and also there's something called thinking about thinking.
That's right.
That's right. And this is where we have to get to. So, people are making arguments about the flags.
Yeah, which way?
My question is regardless of which way my flags are positioned,
right?
If I'm beating my women and my children,
right?
If my flags are positioned, if you will, the right way or the wrong way,
right,
what kind of individual does that make me?
Right.
That's flags are, the positioning of the flags, we're gonna go into certain things about that.
That's right.
We just spend too much time on customs and things that don't make a difference.
The Prophet demonstrates to you now that customs cannot
alter the nature of truth.
So if you read the lesson, what's the argument about? What are we arguing about? We have more work that needs to be done, and we'll find out that we have a lot more in common than we do not in common.
Correct.
If we just come to an understanding.
And now what we're speaking on, because she is Tiffany Jones Bay.
Okay,
she put the concept in my mind, and women can teach as well.
That's right.
Sometimes even better than brothers.
That's right.
So there's no ceiling for women in the Moorish Science Temple of America. She put on my mind operational unity.
Okay.
And now when we look at operational unity, you can continue to do what you're doing, but we need to, we need to come up with some positive results. Exactly. As opposed to focusing on, I don't like the way you wear your tie.
Right.
Just things.
Even the fact about wearing tie.
Oh, right. These things really don't make a difference, and it's not gotten us or is gonna get us anyways.
Right.
So all the debate that you see, these things, disrespect,
it's just declaring
that violates
the divine constitution and bylaws.
The divine constitution and bylaws.
It is in chapter 25, the Asiatic Covenant.
Asiatic Covenant.
That's right.
And the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America.
So,
man, if it wasn't for the Resurrection book, the author and founder, Mrs. Timothy G. Dingle-Will, hyphenated Noble Drew Ali, and people are gonna have a problem with when we say that, but there's a lesson behind it. So before you have a problem with it, you should ask the individuals who know about the lesson behind it and have a fruitful and meaningful discussion. We're not asking you to accept it, but we are going to honor who taught our teacher, because this is what gave us life, and this is why we're able to stand before you and demonstrate some of the things that we're demonstrating to you now. We honor all those who are keeping the doors of the Moorish Science Temple of America.
All the names both holding them.
Because regardless if you feel or we feel that they did something wrong, I tell you one thing, it's something to learn from.
That's right.
It's either to learn what to do or what not to do. So, that's how, they are my thoughts, as far as, what has happened in the Moorish Science Temple. Right. And when we went to the Interfaith dinner, a brother, Muslim brother, actually, Dr. Bilal Ali. I actually had the opportunity to work under him one time before, and just seeing him in the community and things of this nature.
He's a delegate.
He's a delegate. Yes. He basically brought up the rocking chair syndrome, and I employed anyone who's watching to look at it because it was something interesting.
That's right.
I said, wow, let me go look it up. Right. So I looked up the rocking chair syndrome, and that's what we need to get out of, the rocking chair syndrome. Right. Because the people they are positive people who have good jobs, good intentions, right, who want to know more about the Moorish Science Temple of America, but you have misrepresentations out there who are misrepresenting what it is that we are. So this is another reason why we felt obligated to do a show.
Exactly.
We're not disputing charters.
We're not doing
who is the Supreme Grand Sheikh? I mean, all that stuff. Whatever you feel, you like it, right, I love it. But what I'm going to do is honor, and I'm going to teach, and this is what we are taught to do. We are honored. We honor and we teach.
Abide by the law.
Abide by the law. And that's
Constitution of Bylaws. That's what we want to abide by.
That's what you have to do. And we have so many great stories and lessons that we have that we're able to share. But also what we want you to do, because this is not just all about us. We have an email, and the email is rather long. So I want you to, if you have a pen and a piece of paper, feel free to email us your questions or something that you would like for us to cover on the show. We will actually take the time to sit down and investigate
right,
it, and present facts and the truth
and sources. Because we're talking about, the thing is, what you have to understand, when we're dealing with sources, we're talking about primary sources, we're talking about secondary sources.
That's right.
So when we're talking about primary sources, we're talking about first-hand accounts. So we're willing to, whatever the topic is, look and examine and investigate that primary source. We're going to bring you primary factual sources. We're never going to just grab something out of the sky and say, okay, this is what it is. No. Right. If we can't find it, praise Allah, we're going to be honest and earnest enough to let you know that. But we're going to take primary and secondary sources, and we'll teach you how to make the distinction between the two.
Correct.
Because it's just a lot of information out there that people are putting out there that have a lot of people in confusion.
And presenting one-sided arguments.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely true.
And that's not operating according to educational ethics,
right,
or principle.
That's right.
they present one side of an argument, and then they take it and run with it.
That's right.
And then will promote and say, well, we're the real Morris. Yeah, it's nonsense. We operate according to principles, and we're leveling off with the truth. No temple is greater than another temple.
That's right.
I'm more than sure that I can go to a temple and I can learn some things, from another temple.
That's right.
And we're willing to work with other temples if if you have information that you would like to send in, because there's this guy named Patrick Bowen.
Okay, yeah. Patrick Bowen.
I want to know what order he belongs to.
Yeah, good question.
Because he's asking people to send
information
into him, and he's written some pretty good stuff. I think
very detailed.
Yeah, it's detailed, scholarly. I think it's good. But I wondered what order is he, or is he a part of an order? Just a question that I had in my mind. Hypothetically speaking, I could be. He may not even belong to.
Right. This might be a enthusiast of more science.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I know how he was partly introduced to more science, or maybe doing some investigation. Okay. I partly know, but I'm not all the way in the know.
I got you.
So, basically, that's what we're here. We're here for the public.
That's right.
And
somewhere I read. So somewhere I read, and I heard too. If I can find the good in you, or I can see the good in you, and you can see the good in me, it makes no difference what others may say.
Correct.
And that's what we're about. We're here for the public. We are here to help and assist and aid the public.
Absolutely.
And that's what we've committed and dedicated ourselves to.
So basically, the temporarily for right now, the email address is Moorish American Society MD@gmail.com. So that's MOORISH American AMERICAN Society SOCIETY MD@gmail.com. You can email us your questions. I hope I didn't jumble up some letters or anything like that.
Perfect.
So you can email us. And as we grow, we'll have an opportunity possibly for people to call in. We'll have an opportunity for people to chat.
That's right.
We kind of knew at what it is that we're doing.
That's right.
So, if we are not answering the chat
right now,
we eventually we will. But we just felt obligated to, just bring about
a breath of fresh air.
Also on Tuesday nights, Grand Sheikah Seabreeze Bay has a show called The Moorish Light on Blog Talk Radio.
Check it out.
Check that out, because she gives out her and the co-host. They cover some of the same things that we cover, but take it a step further and really deal with like a lot of law,
historical
aspects of not only the movement, but what happened during the time of the Civil War.
That's right.
And things of this nature. So, we will share everything that we possibly can share.
That's
and I also want to define exoteric.
Okay.
Because we defined esoteric. And now let me define exoteric. And that is especially of a doctrine or a mode of speech intended for or likely to be understood by the general public. So esoteric is very different from exoteric, because you could pick up the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America and read it all day. But if you are not instructed and after you are instructed, carefully observe the teachings of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple, of the Quran questions for Moorish Americans,
Mm-hmm.
of the divine constitution and bylaws,
That's right.
of the Moorish literature,
That's right.
right? Of carefully observe
That's right.
the teachings of these particular things, then, I mean, you're not even scratching the surface.
Not at all.
And, Prophet Noble Drew Ali was never at odds with the United States government.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, he was responsible for getting Oscar the Priest into office. For all those who don't know who Oscar the Priest is, feel free to investigate who Oscar the Priest is. And I mean, so much, much more. There are many things that Prophet Noble Drew Ali did that, me being in the movement for 20 years, I still am uncovering things like, wow, the Prophet demonstrated that. And, and many things that some of our elders did that, we have knowledge of,
Mm-hmm.
but, we really need to understand further and more.
That's right.
And carefully observe the teachings of the great book of the resurrection.
That's right.
Because this book, before I even came into the temple, I used to work at a bookstore.
Okay.
And I met a few Moorish Americans in passing.
Right.
But it wasn't until I went to over at Morgan.
Okay.
Your alma mater.
That's right.
They used to have these things called the Call of Consciousness.
Okay.
And at the time, I was a part of, it was called the Rites of Passage Collective, because I went through what was called the Rite of Passage.
Okay.
Right. And it was based off of, I mean, there were different people, Christians, Muslims.
Right.
It was a part of there were people who studied the traditional African religions.
Exactly.
And we all came together on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it was about improving yourself.
That's right.
So we were taken to this thing called the Call to Consciousness, and a good brother who actually also graduated from Morgan and started a fraternity over at Morgan called GQ, Gentlemen of Quality. He, brother Derek Chase, he started what was called the Call of Consciousness. And we all went over there, and there were brothers from the Moorish Science Temple. And, I got a few flyers, but it wasn't until I read the great book of the resurrection, The Truth Be Yourself, Not Somebody Else, author and founder of the book, Timothy G. Dingle Ill, hyphenated Noble Drew Ali. Islam. So he, in reading his record, I said, this, a lot of it wasn't making sense, but some of it I was like, wow. So I started searching and investigating, looking for a temple. And lo and behold, the flyers and at the time, the book that I had, the temple was located at 127 West 27th Street. And I visited, and when I visited, I was like, wow. It was one of the greatest places that I've ever been. And I said, man, I gotta keep coming back. And I could only come back on Sunday sometimes. And then I was only able to come back on Fridays. And then how about I met a young gentleman, because I used to be a substitute teacher at my old high school, Frederick Douglass Senior High School. And the student of a class that I was substituting, his name is actually, he's assistant Grand Sheik now. That's right. And he's assistant Grand Sheik Kaheem Carter Bay, who lives in Alabama.
Yeah, Huntsville.
Yeah. And he was in my class, and at the time I was a part of another organization, and he shared some things with me, and he gave me a book to read, and I went home and I read. I said, wow. And after that, I started coming on a regular basis, and even probably maybe 6 months after that, I became a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And I've been at the same temple for the last 20 years.
Praise Allah.
I haven't jumped. I haven't stolen any degrees, any of that. So, if you don't because you know how people say, oh, they don't have what they say they have.
Right.
If you would like to see our credentials,
Right.
just make an arrangement, and you can visit us at the temple, and we'll, show you that on our identifications, on our social security cards, on our all of our taxes, on our degrees. We will, that we obtain from college. We will show you that we are who we say that we are.
Paid $1.
No, not to to
get us. Yeah,
we earned our way. And this is not we not boasting. Not at all, because that doesn't make us greater than anyone. But we are just trying to impress our qualifications, and that we have earned everything that we say that we are, and we are not making up who we are. We are actual real life people who live Moorish science on a day-to-day basis, because it's not about saying that you are Moorish American. Most recently,
because the mouth can say anything.
Yeah, the mouth can say anything.
They don't look at your actions.
Right. It's about living it.
Your
conduct.
We're talking about
making your character symmetrical.
Character.
Right. So, man, for all those who have been listening, I hope this is our introduction to meet us, to see who we are, to get to know our names, and hopefully build a rapport with us, because in the weeks, months, maybe years to come, we are going to be hosting or airing this particular show on Thursdays from 7 p.m. to 7:45. Because after 45 minutes, we don't need to be on here 2 hours. Showboating and show. That's not. We want to be impactful, and we want to be meaningful to the public and the people. Also, this is the eve of our holy day. So feel free tomorrow, if you can, if you're in the Baltimore area, or if you would like to travel to the Baltimore area, to visit us at our holy day Friday, for holy day for all Muslims all over the world, or in other words, in Arabic we say Juma, at 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. At 1055 Milton Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland. You can feel free come and join. Bring your family and join us. Bring your children, because we are a family-oriented organization. And if you're not in our area, please look up a Moorish Science Temple of America and go visit. We don't practice segregation. We want you to go, and we want you to visit, because the only thing that we want from you, not your money. We might want a little bit of time from you, that 45 minutes, and eventually, hopefully, you can come spend more time with us. But the only thing we want from you is to stop calling yourself Negro, Black, and Colored. And we'll tell you and further explain to you why we don't want to call ourselves these particular names. Our people want to cling on to these names because they think that it's cool. It's cool, and that we're saying something derogatory. But according to all true and divine records, we talking about the Holy Bible, the Holy Quran, the Vedas, the Vesta, or any other holy book that you can name. I would like for anybody to show us or email us where our ancestors refer to themselves as being Black. Now, remember, we talking about translation, so we talking about the original language. We want to see if you can show us that
they call themselves Black. Black. Come on, man.
It's not so.
Not so.
Not
so in the Book of Solomon. So
right. So even though the translation, King Solomon said, "Look upon me, not because I'm Black, because the sun has kissed me."
Did he write that?
No, he didn't write that. It
was Queen of Sheba, right?
Right.
Yeah, so,
wrote that book. Right. Yeah. So for all those who are Bible scholars,
that's right.
So pretty much we over our time limit, and we're done. Hope to see you again. Hopefully you got some information and some good facts and truth from us, and we look to see you on next Thursday, same Moorish time, same Moorish channel. It's
Praise
on.
Allah. It's
Praise
Allah.
Allah.